Hi, this is David Odell with Odell Complete Concrete. This is part 2 of a 4-part series. In part 1 we showed the driveway. In this part we're going to be showing the walkway and stamped patio. So we've already got all the underground underneath the driveway, underneath the walkway, and into the yard area for irrigation, low voltage lighting. All that's already in, and that's going to show in part 3. We're going to show all the underground stuff and how we got it there, how we put it in. Now all that PVC you see there is going to be for the sprinklers in the front lawn area. And that's going to go in after the stamped concrete walkway and stamped front patio area. Now this particular material that I'm using here is something that you typically see in landscaping. They use it for bordering off planter beds from lawn, separating different types of materials. I like to use it for forming concrete. It works really good. It's about a 1/2 inch thick, so you don't need a whole lot of stakes, and it maintains a nice true curve. Here's the front patio area here. We've got those pipes that you see sticking up along the house. One is the backwash from the pool that drops into the sewer. Then the other one is your sewer cleanout. The sewer cleanout, I'm going to lower that down, flush to the top of concrete, put a brass collar around it. The other one, there's not a whole lot I could do with that. That's just going to be there. That's one of those deals you put a potted plant in front of or something like that. This front patio is going to be 9.5 feet. Now here's what the Spectrum guys ended up doing here. They cleaned it up real nice. Here's the new box they put in. In part 1 we showed the old box and what it looked like, and they cleaned this up, put a new one in, and now it makes a lot more sense. The wires come out from the bottom instead of the top. Okay, here's my new laser level. It's a Johnson self-leveling. You just got to get your stand somewhat straight. When you set it on top, it won't work unless it's level. So it's real simple to use. Now you could measure down from that weep screed, and assuming it's level, and basically you would just be assuming, because a lot of times weep screeds aren't level. So I like to break out the laser level to verify everything. And right here what we're doing is just kind of checking the grade to make sure that we have enough dirt out of here to get our forms in. Also, we're going to have a fencing along this front porch. We're going to do redwood 2x6s. We're going to be running them horizontally, and they're going to have about 2.5 inch gaps in between 4 of them. So it's only going to be 30 inches high with a gate. So it's an area where you can sit out here and have the dog in there. And that's, that's about it. We're going to set our posts, our 4x4 posts, about every 5.5 feet. So I'm going to put some post brackets in the concrete. They're going to be a little bit thickened areas, probably 10 inch by 10 inch, just enough to hold those brackets in there. So I'm going to preset those before the actual pour, so those brackets will be there, set in the bottom portion of the footing. Then I can pour the slab around them. That's just one less thing you have to deal with as you pour. You can wet set them when you pour the slab, but if you have the time and you're doing other things on the job site, it's a lot easier just to set them ahead of time. It's one less thing you have to deal with trying to get straight while you're trying to stamp or do other things. Now the same material I used for the forms is also going to be this used for separating the planter bed from the lawn. We're not going to do a concrete mow strip. We're just going to leave that material left in the ground. And then you can see that we already have the form up for that property line wall, which I talked about in part 1 a little bit, how we're going to hide the brick from the neighbor's raised lawn. Now that little porch there, that's going to get covered with some tile, the same tile that they used inside the house. Now this patio and walkway is going to get a stamped concrete, and it's going to be stamped with a 2x6 looking various length types wood. 2 colors. It's going to have a light gray base with a little charcoal gray or medium gray for your highlights. So here's your collar. I'm getting this prepped and getting it lowered so I can get a collar around this sewer clean out. So instead of having 2 pipes sticking up randomly, we'll just have 1. So we're gonna dowel in. Also, we drilled into the side of the driveway there, and we put a couple 3/8 rebar dowels out. We drilled 3/8 holes and just drove them in with a sledgehammer. Now where the new sidewalk meets the city sidewalk, I actually dug underneath the sidewalk. Instead of drilling into the city sidewalk, I actually went underneath it a little bit, kind of created a keyway there. And we're going to do the same rebar layout we did in the driveway, and that's 2-foot centers, both directions, 3/8 rebar. Now on that sewer clean out there, we covered that with some blue tape, and when we pressure wash the secondary color off this stamped concrete, we can pressure wash that tape right off the lid. Comes off real easy with a pressure washer. Now I'm laying out our post stirrups where we're going to put the posts for the new fence. We're going to inset them about 6 inches. That will allow for my 2x6s on the outside of the posts. Also give me a little extra space for easy maintenance on the garden area. So we hand mix that concrete there, just enough to get these straps in. And these post straps I like a lot better than the 2-hole ones with the lags that go all the way through. These particular ones, it costs a little bit more, but it comes with the screws. I think it comes with 5 or 6 screws per side. So I hung some Visqueen on this. I normally don't hang Visqueen or plastic on anything unless I have to throw color hardener. In this case, I will be throwing some color hardener, and that's why I have plastic. See, those post brackets you could set, in the slab and just have thickened areas there. But it's just a little extra work, and it's hard to hold them straight. And then also when you're stamping and you have mats hitting them, knocking them around, you could run into some problems. So you preset those. The color hardening I'm using here is called Stone Gray, and it's made by Brick Form. right after we bowl float it, I start broadcasting it on here. Also, an interesting thing I just wanted to share with you is these pants that I've just discovered. They're nursing scrubs, basically, what you'd see a nurse wear. Very loose fitting, lots of big pockets, really comfortable for working in. If you do this kind of work, I recommend them. Matter of fact, I bought a couple just to try them out, and I said, wow. So that's all I got now. Now I went and bought 5 more of them. They're only about $15 each. So right after you bowl float, you broadcast it on there. And then as that water starts to come up out of the concrete, it absorbs into your color hardener. As soon as that happens, you'll know it because it changes colors as it lays there and the water absorbs into it. Then you're ready to bowl float. Then you bowl float that in there, and then you'll see some more gray spots here and there where the color hardener may have not been that thick. Then you broadcast again. It normally takes 2 good casts of color hardener plus 1 more just touch-ups, and then that's about it. You can see how it changes colors as it sets. And that's just because the water's starting to absorb into it. Now you want to wear gloves when you're throwing color hardener. Basically, it's like putting your hand in a sand blaster if you don't. Because that's what it is. It's sand and it's cement. And those 2 things are not good for your hands. So after that second casting, you let the moisture absorb back into the color hardener again, and then you're ready to either hit it with your funny trowel or your funny float. In this case, I went with the funny trowel. If you go with the funny float, there's a good chance you're going to end up throwing a lot more color because it really moves it around. Now the color hardener, the beauty of coloring it with that is it's always the same color throughout the entire job, no matter how you do it or how many pours. When you use color hardener, it's the same from beginning to end. No variations in your finished product. Not only that, it's 5,500 psi, so color fading and staining, really resistant to those things. You could come back to this job 15 years, and if you wanted to do this color again, you could match it really easily. If they're still making that product. Now you notice those brackets are set off the concrete just a little bit. That's just for to keep the water off the post. That way you're less likely to rot out as quickly. I'm going to be using redwood posts and redwood 2x6s to build that, and they're termite resistant. Termites don't like redwood or cedar. Now, if you're really interested in stamping concrete, I do go into more detail in some close-ups of stamping techniques on my Patreon account. That's Patreon, and what that is, it gives you a little bit more detail of how to actually lay out your stamp pattern, how to do it. We do some close-ups on that. We're going to show it here as well, but just not quite as much detail. But basically, what you're gonna do on this particular pattern that we're using, you have to have it's all straight lines, so you're gonna have to line it up. Basically, we're lining it up with the house. What I did is I pre-laid this out, measuring down from the house, and I broke it down into 10-foot segments. Basically, I have a stake at every 10 foot, all the way down. Now here's what the stamp pattern looks like. It looks like it's got kind of like a nail hole to simulate like the wood planks that got nailed down. Well, what I've done is where these mats end, they don't have the holes, right? Because they're made a certain length, a certain width, and my walkway is not that wide, so I had to find something to simulate the nail downs. And what worked was a screw-in adapter for the broom. It was the exact same size as the stamp pattern holes, so I used that wherever I ran out on the end. Just punched a couple holes in the stamped concrete. Would have been nice to start at the house and come down, but you know, the easy things never really happen. So in this case, the sun was down here, so we had to take a risk and start at the street, work our way up, and hope we hit the house square. And now we ran into another problem here where a portion of the walkway was too wet to dry. So now we got to jump all the way over to the patio, the furthest point away from where we already left off stamping. And now this is another guesswork again. Hopefully that when these two mats come together at the walkway, they line up again. We know we're straight, so the worst case scenario is we might have, instead of a 6-inch plank, maybe we'll have a 4-inch. Anything less might not be that nice looking, but a 4-inch we could live with. This powder you see throwing on there, that's your secondary color. That is a medium gray. We went with the stone gray, which is a lot lighter than this medium gray, and they're both made by Brick Form. This is the antique release agent, so it's coloring it, and it also acts as a release agent for the mats so they don't stick to the concrete. Most of this powder is going to get rinsed off, probably 60% of it. And what you'll have is the powder color will be left in all the creases and veins of the wood grain. That will just enhance it. And then we'll put a wet look sealer on top of this to really make it pop. We got lucky on the layout. When we hit the house, we were coming within a 1/2 inch of the stucco. It's kind of what I planned when I did my initial 10-foot layout all the way down. I wanted it to be about a 1/2 inch because I wanted a little leeway. A lot of times stucco and houses aren't that straight, so you need to allow for 1 inch to a 1/2 inch play, just in case you run into a foundation that's not that great. And then when I came down here and I met the mats down on the sidewalk, I ended up with a 4-incher instead of a 6-inch plank, right at the gate too. It's going to be right at the gate, so I was able to hide it real well. Now here's the homeowners. They wanted to see, because you can actually adjust how much of the secondary color you can rinse off. You can actually use muriatic acid and remove all the secondary color if you wanted to, or depending on the ratio you mixed your muriatic acid, you get less or more. In this case, we used no muriatic acid, just a pressure washer. Now it's a messy process, there's no doubt about it. when you do it like this. There is some cleaner ways, but for looks wise, this is probably the best. It actually started raining on us during this procedure right here. We started pressure washing. We're actually getting rained on at the same time. Anyway, thank you for watching, and make sure that you subscribe. And this was part 2 of a 4-part series. So stay tuned. Catch those next ones. Hit the subscribe so you don't miss anything. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day.